Okay. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. To some of us, we're just waking up, and to all the others, I think almost halfway or almost done with the day. But yeah, welcome. I'll be the host for this series of Success versus Greatness, and my name is Pauline Naluvega, and I will I will let the team introduce themselves. But first of all, I would just want to say welcome, Angela Mirembe Semwogerere.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dear.
It's a pleasure to have you on this call, and we are all excited. We've been looking forward to having this conversation, and can't wait to hear more from you and to chat with you and to get to know you and everything.
Cool.
So, and I will let the team at Engage, Inspire, and Empower introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go first as the proud sort of leader of Engage, Inspire, and Empower. So hi, everyone. I'm Patricia Mumba. I am the proud founder of Engage, Inspire, and Empower. And I'm so happy that Angela was able to do this. Success versus Greatness is so special to us, and it's such an amazing program that we think you are going to be really impactful in. So I'm so excited for this interview. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And from a girl from STEM to another girl from STEM, I am so happy that the conversation's here. So, so that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Patricia, thank you for that wonderful introduction. My name is Francis Mumba. I'm Patricia's brother, and I am the head of communications and branding for Engage, Inspire, Empower. Same as Patricia, we've been looking forward to this interview, the whole week. And, we're really glad we get a wonderful host in Pauline, because she's really good. So Angela, you're most welcome. You're gladly in good hands. And yeah, I really want to hear more about STEM, because I'm not from that side of the spectrum. But yeah, I really admire people who, are in that, industry or, section of education. And I'm sure people would like to know more about how things are done or how to go about joining STEM. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. Oh, nice. Maybe we'll adopt you to STEM after. Adoptions are legal and acceptable. So.
Oh yeah.
So just a little bit about the organization, Engage, Inspire, and Empower. It started out about mentoring the people after us, or the generations. So I think most times we get to a point whereby you look for information, but you don't know where to get it from. So that's how the organization started out, helping others. I mean, it's so nice to share your information and skills and everything. So if you can help somebody else, that is really great. Trying to leave this world a better place. And so we'll get to you, Angela. So we are excited to have you. And I think for most of the people on the call or watching us on Facebook Live, they're asking, who is Angela? So I think that will be the first question. Who are you? And yeah.
I'm still trying to figure that out as well. But if I reflect on my childhood, if someone asked me who was Angela as a child, maybe things she was interested in. As far as I can remember, I loved two things. I loved machinery, like opening up anything electrical. But then I think towards my teens, maybe preteens, I really loved communication, to speak. So I used to watch the time I was growing up, we didn't know about inspirational speakers. So we mostly watched preachers.
Oh,
So I used to watch like people like Joyce Meyer and T.D. Jakes and Juanita Bynum, and I used to think, I want to speak before crowds. So I knew that I loved two things. I loved how machines worked and stuff like that, but I also loved to speak. I didn't know what I was going to speak about. So I think Angie is someone who loves technology, but I also like to communicate and speak to people. But it also goes beyond that. I really love to encourage people. There's inspiring. We know you go for an inspirational talk and you're inspired in there and people are like lifting chairs and yeah, I can do it. And then you get home and you're like, oh, I can't. So
Yeah.
I like to encourage people through like a step-by-step process. Like, look, if you're planning to do this, can we actually set a plan and say, you know, goal 1, and when you achieve that, then we're like, yay, now we can try goal 2. So it's not like wishful thinking, but I'm more like a goal setter. So those 3 things I think are something I rotate about: machinery or tech now, speaking and encouraging young people.
Oh, that is really great. I think it's interesting to hear that you're actually interested in technology in a very early on stage.
I almost got electrocuted actually.
Oh no,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I got a cord for the kettle. So I used to wonder, how is it that this wall boils water? So I switched the plug on and then I put the cord right onto my mouth, you know, and then turned the power on. So I was that interested.
Oh no. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow.
So
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's always been a mystery just how those things worked. I'm one of those, how does it work?
Okay. That is really interesting. I think to me, like earlier on, it was more like, oh my goodness, I really want to do this. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. Like, it was not certain for me. It was all over the place until I think I got into like until I got into like secondary level or like college, and then that's when like it stick. It was just like, okay, I now want to do science because I've always loved math. Like, I love anything that does like numbers and everything, and I like to mess around with numbers. And to me, I was just like, anything that works with numbers, I will do. I think that's how I got interested in the science and technology, and yeah. And then I actually ended up getting into like engineering, so which has been like really interesting. But at the same time, like in my engineering, I still work with data, like it's numbers and make decisions of numbers. So yeah. I think that to you, like, it's quite different, like the different journeys that we take. Some people know their interests like earlier on, others know like later. And so I think one thing that I really found out, like, so tell us a little more about Coding in Heels. I know you're the CEO.
I'm gonna tell you what it was pre-COVID.
Okay,
I think
tell
we
us how you
be
got
humble
there.
enough. Huh?
Tell us how you got there.
I think we can be humble enough to all say that we all had big plans and everyone had their business plan and it's gone out the window. So we're starting afresh. But basically how Coding in Heels started. I was working for an organization and we were doing the Google Digital Skills. So a friend of mine and a fellow staff member, he was a coder and he had like a few friends who were coders, and they were like, you know, at that time I was like managing the company. So he was like, you know, we'd like to really open up some coding classes for young people to come and, you know, pay at a subsidized rate. So I was like, fantastic, put the advert out. And then, you know, they just kept getting application after application, but they were all guys. So I was like, no, that's not right. Can you advertise again? And once again, it was guys. And the class was like on a Saturday and the place would get full and it was just guys. So I was like, why aren't girls applying? So they were like, you know, we don't know. And so I said, okay, look, let's do one for the girls. and it's strictly for the girls. So they know that it will be a separate class. Because I know what it was like to be in an IT class. Sometimes you'd lag behind and you can't find your comma in the code, and people are like, oh God, here we go. So I was like, it's let's make them feel comfortable. And so that's where the idea came from. And naming it Coding in Heels, I named it Coding in Heels because of the stereotype that a girl in computing or tech is a tomboy. So, you know, it was like, yeah, they're always with backpacks. And so I was like, no. You can look as fabulous and, you know, look like you're coming off the catwalk and be a coder. So the name Coding in Heels came from. So basically, that's how it started. We started out with about 10 girls who were so dedicated. Like, it would rain and I'd be like, guys, it's raining, do you want to cancel the class? And they'd be like, no, we're coming. So and it was a class, not like a syllabus, but I wanted people to get information. Like, if you bumped into a bunch of guys talking about code or IT, I wanted to get them out of that state where you look like you're a deer in headlights. So if people are talking about like, oh, what's HTML, what's JavaScript, you know, just basic knowledge, that's where it started from. But one day I realized I was walking down the street and I said, okay, if I was like an unemployed youth and I was just walking around doing my own business and someone came to me and said, hey, we have free coding classes, I don't think I'd take it up. Number one, because I don't really know what it is. Number two, however much we don't want to admit it, coding really does take time. And it really does, it's a bit draining because you can have 3 days where you don't sleep. So it's not something that's a walk over. So I realized there has to be someone to kind of pass on information about the whole thing. Basically, for me, it feels like if you're telling someone, come and learn how to code, it's like telling them and saying, come, let me teach you how to be a neurosurgeon before you teach them about biology, how blood moves and everything. So I kind of started drifting away from just the classes to just bringing awareness of why code is important. Where is it going? What does code do? People go through sliding doors and they don't know there's code behind that. People are using, you know, filters and they don't know that there's code behind that, you know? So especially for women, how can we interest them without it being like, oh, if you want to do coding, you got to go for a computer engineering course. And then telling them that, do you know what, in a time like COVID, where you have, you know, you used to own a fashion store, you can now build a website where you can sell online, because someone might not even know that a simple website, that's code behind it. So that's the trend that actually Coding in Heels was supposed to take in 2020, where we were just supposed to educate so that someone has a choice and says, you know what, I'm learning code for this. I'm learning code to be a data scientist. I'm learning code to be a web designer. So I found that people are not engaging so much sciences and code because the truth is we don't really know what it is. We know it's a complex thing, but we don't know what it is. I don't know, how is it going to put food on my table, you know? And not just even code. I think I was beginning to train on just about the whole thing, like 4IR, Fourth Industrial Revolution, and all the technology that has come with it. I mean, I remember I was even pleading with some schools and saying, look, why don't you teach kids how to open a Gmail account? And, you know, they'd be like, no, that's not part of the syllabus. But now many of them are on Zoom and they needed, you know, these accounts, and kids are studying on Zoom. And the technology has swept over, and a lot of people were not aware because they thought like, oh, tech is something you learn at university and leave it there. So Coding in Heels, I think, began to transform a bit because I realized there's that aspect of awareness that is needed to help people understand what is artificial intelligence. People don't know they use artificial intelligence every day. What is, you know, what is cloud? How does it protect you to save stuff on cloud? So there's a lot of that awareness that needs to go out. Then someone can be like, oh, you know what, actually then code might be interesting if there's an end result seen.
I think that brings it home, because I think I had to do like a few IT classes or coding classes, and I had to use Python. And like, to me, what got me interested is because like, to me, I was just curious about everything, and we had to like write code to kind of like tell the robot to tell the robot what to do. And to me, my goal that semester was kind of like to just make this robot talk. That was my goal. And like when I made it talk, like that was the best thing in the world. Yeah. So I think, and I had to learn how to be patient, because sometimes, like, you know, with the comma and then
debugging. The debugging and it says nope, it's not working, and you have to look through where have I gone wrong, and
yeah, I think like that's the challenging thing. And I think that one of the things that you say that is really interesting is trying to break down coding. What is it? Like, if you hear coding, you're not going to be like interested, but when you hear what it is and the end result and everything, you might get interested. So I think that is interesting. And I think most of the things that we do should have like an end result, and see where does it go, and maybe it can help somebody.
A lot of young people today, and you know, when we talk about COVID having like a reset, I remember that I got a call from a young lady, and she was in Silicon Valley. She was a student though, and she's an American, and so she got in touch with me as a mentee, and she said, to be honest, Angie, like I think she was studying medicine or something like that. And she said, you know, she was supposed to have completed that year. And of course, with COVID, everything shut down. And she said for a minute, she sat down and she started to ask herself all these questions, like, do I really want to be a doctor? Do I really? And so she was interested because, you know, there's a lot of talk about getting to understand code and why they're going to be like 2.5 million jobs over the next 5 years that are going to be available. And I think a lot of young people today don't really know what they want to be. We're going to school, yes, but even the dynamics of school have changed, because right now, if you realize that if you go to college for 3 years, let's say minimum 3 years, for a degree. Right now, the chances of you coming out and finding a job being run exactly the same way it was 3 years ago is going to be close to minimal, because I'm working with companies now where I'm consulting, and their processes have to change completely, because now there's less staff are working remotely. So instead of we're going to have a physical meeting, it's now we have to arrange Zoom meetings. Who's going to schedule them? You know, life has changed so drastically. You know, now the administrator is not like, oh, I'll walk down to, you know, whatever, to the courier and everything. So now, you know, you have to have your Google meetings, you have to have your Skype calls, you need to have your Zoom calls, you need to know how to make invitations. So everything like that, like even the way of work has changed. So now people have to revise and tell themselves, okay, what jobs are going to be there in the future? What can I prepare myself for? Because right now you're like saying, oh, I'm going to be an accountant, but I know that there are a lot of innovators who are creating apps that are going to do everything. So no one's going to need you from 8 to 5.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I think one thing that you mentioned, like COVID was kind of like a reset, and how do we deal with everything? Because right now, I think it was like a shutdown, and everybody was, you're now remote, you're working remote, or you have to do your classes over at the computer. You're not meeting people in person anymore. So I think that was like a drastic change and like a wake-up call, and to see how can technology actually impact our lives. Like right now, it's technology that is taking us places. It's not the airplanes. It's not, it's not like the airports are kind of like on a standstill, because they also rely on technology, and technology is actually the driving force towards where we're going. And I think one thing that I really wanted to ask is, why technology for you?
Why not? That's like asking me.
Yeah, it could have been like,
why not carbon dioxide instead of oxygen, you know?
Yeah. One is a byproduct of the other.
You know, like I said, technology is something I've always been interested in as a child. While my friends wanted to go out and play, for me, as long as there was a computer, I was more drawn to that. However, today, for someone to say like, why technology? That's like just what I've said. Like, why not oxygen? Yeah. Because right now, if you don't have any technological knowledge, and we're not talking about degrees, and that's the distinction I want to make. When I talk about like technology, I'm not talking about a degree or a diploma. Just because when Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat came out, we didn't go to college for them. We used them, but we didn't sit down for 3 weeks for a short course online. People really like exploring. People were exploring and they figured it out. So when I tell people like educate yourself with technology, technology is too wide. It's just like the physical body. You have, you know, the skeletal, you have the nervous system, you have the neurological system. So it's so wide, but that's what it goes back to the goal. What are you trying to achieve in life? If you want to be a doctor, I have no problem with that. But what technology do you need in that field? Because like I used to love watching plastic surgery, like those programs. I've watched them probably for 10 years. So I used to see how those guys used to like leave massive scars, you know, they chop you up doing a liposuction or whatever. But when you watch it now, the technology they use where, you know, they're now using like pinhole technology where you have almost no scars. That is also technology in the medical field. If you want to be a farmer, you don't have to, you know, wait for see which direction the wind is coming from. So you know when to sow and when to reap. It's all technology. They're using technology to figure out how fertile is the soil and things like that. So I'll tell people, I don't care what field you're going to be in. You just need to figure out your goal career, your goal area of life, and you need to find out what aspects in that area are being affected by technology, whether it be chefs. Yeah. Everyone is being affected. That's why you saw when I call it a reset. I mean, COVID didn't care if you had, you know, capital of $10 million or if you had $5. The thing is, you had to figure out a way to use technology to keep going. Now, a lot of businesses, like I said, went down. On the business side, a lot of people's businesses went down because they now couldn't reach their customers. Like for us, you know, I think we were given like 2 days notice before shutdown, 2 or 3 days, right? No one had time to, you know, get the visitor's book and grab all their phone numbers. Nobody had time to do that, right? No one had, you know, time to go to the cabinet and find all the clients' addresses. There was none of that. It was only people who already had that information stored either in the cloud, documents in the cloud, who were able to keep their business going. And it goes back to the consumers as well. There are consumers who had no idea about online shopping, about finding whatever they want to get. So it was a win-win on some situations where people were familiar with these things, and then it was a loss for some people. So I'd tell people, why technology? Because it's the way to go.
That's a good answer. Yeah, and then I know you try to reach out like to the girls and into STEM. So what has been one of the greatest challenge to get there, and what would you tell somebody who is kind of like struggling to get into technology? They don't know where to start and all that.
You know, there's 2 aspects of the challenge. The first thing, if I take it back in history, it's just unfortunate that STEM, I mean, you mentioned mathematics and I shuddered because for me, like up to today, I don't get it. So I feel where they're coming from, you know? I feel it when someone's like, do STEM. It's like, no, I don't want to. So there's that
stigma
narrative that went out that these are hard subjects. You see, for me, I look at STEM because it's fun. there's someone who will think of, there's two people. One will think of like, let's say sciences and test tubes and stuff, and think of it as so much fun, you know, mixing stuff and it bubbles over. And then someone else will have an experience where they went to a lab and maybe there was one beacon or something, and you know, they were being quizzed on things they didn't understand, and you know, so it became something like, I don't want to deal with that. All I knew is I had to study. So that alone, that stigma, it's messed the whole society up, thinking those are hard things. And then of course, when you mention things like engineering, those are male roles. Because someone would say, for example, networking. By the time I was studying networking, you know, we set up a network for a building, and I had to crawl through that false ceiling to set up the network. You know, when they said it was a man's job, I believed them. After that, yeah. But technology has changed, because now a lot of the stuff can be programmed on the keyboard. You don't need to do so much. So now it's not so much physically a man's job, but it's a lot of mental as well. Yeah. And Uganda, speaking on the side of Uganda, where I come from, it's a very young population. We're like the second youngest in the world. So a lot of students are still being guided by their parents.
Yeah.
And their parents are also only just getting familiar with technology. So your parents will be like, you know, you need to go to school, get a good job. You need to do human resource, social sciences, you know, those nice courses.
You have to be a doctor.
Be a doctor, be a lawyer, you know, but not knowing that even lawyers, like they're now using, you know, algorithms to predict cases, but that's tech as well. So young people also, we might also come from a bit of a rigid society where the parents can still dictate what you should do. And in most cases, most parents are not going to say, go do sciences. Unless you're like super bright and they see like, you can manage. And it, like I said, it goes down to, those are hard courses. Because I remember even in school, someone would be like, oh, I'm taking PCM, which is physics, chemistry, and math. And I'd be like, oh my God, you know?
Do you have good brains for that?
I'm like, I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you talk about the stereotypes, or like the stigma behind being in like a man's world. So I think, for generations, like science, technology, engineering, math, those have been like the man's world. And for us, we've been towards like more of the nurturing, the arts, and all that creative,
customer service.
Oh yeah. I think to me, I can relate to that, because ideally being an engineer was kind of like stepping into a man's world. And I think like that was the challenging, like the reality for me, like going through school, it was just like, oh, you can do it. You can go through the system and just do it. And when you get into actually the real world, it's like, oh my goodness. I'm in the office, I'm the only female, and it's crazy. Like it's minority. Yeah. And I think like that was shocking to me. But at the same time, I think I expected it, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. So I think that's the challenge. So how do you fight the stigma? How do you tell somebody who has been told for generations, like, hey, you cannot do math, hey, you cannot do science, hey, you cannot do technology? Like, what would you tell to that individual?
No, that's a question for a shrink. To be honest,
no, I think you can do it. I think you can do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna respond to it, but from the side of maybe like a shrink would. You see, when someone tells you most limitations, the world will always limit us. So we're not even going to use the world as an excuse. The world will always tell you, you can't do, you're too short, you're too tall, you're too skinny, you're too fat. You will never be enough for the world. So it really comes down to, what limitations do you have for yourself? All limitations are really set by us. Because I mean, if you're hungry and you know you're hungry and your stomach is like rumbling, you're not gonna come and tell me, no, Angie, you're not hungry. You're irrelevant. I know what I feel, I know what I know, right?
Yeah.
So when I find someone who says, me coming to you and saying, come on, you can do it. That's what I'm talking about, that inspiring. You can do it. Like, I'll tell you, yeah, you're bright, you can do it. There's that encouragement. But at the end of the day, it has to come from you, your belief. You sit down and you gauge yourself and you're like, you know what? Like you said, I want this robot to talk. Yeah. Nobody needs to know. It's your belief. I want this robot to talk, and I really believe it can talk. You sit down, you pace yourself. It's because it's that belief that's in you that's going to come out. So when people are like, oh, you know, I was told I don't love technology. Actually, let me even put it this way. I remember a parent came and they were like, oh, you know, I want you to talk to my daughter about technology. They love technology. I said, really? They're like, oh, she loves it. I asked the girl, so tell me, you love technology? She's like, yeah, I love it. I'm like, which area? And she's like, I don't know any. I'm like, no. It cannot be.
Oh, goodness.
Which area attracts you the most? Is it networking? Is it hardware? Is it cloud? Is it software? Is it artificial intelligence, machine learning? And she was oblivious to what I was talking about. So I told her, no, you don't love technology. Now, someone who comes like that, however much I'm telling them, you can do it. I believe in you. You're smart enough. That's not where their interest is. Yeah. So, like I said, it goes all the way back to the narrative of, what do you love to do? What do you feel your call is? What is your purpose? Someone will tell you, I'm into makeup. Let's even use like a traditional women's, you know, like, I'm into makeup. I want to do cosmetology. And then you introduce them to, you know, these apps that add makeup to your face and everything like that. Now, if you tell her, look, if you want to learn like what shades go with what complexion, you could try this app. Now that person will become interested. And then when she's like, this app is so cool. Now, if I come to that person and say, what if you could build your own local app? Because maybe the ones you're using are using fairer complexion because they're coming from the Western world. What if you could like use the complexion where, I mean, we're surrounded by so many complexions. We have Sudan, which is of the darker shade. We have like, I'm not really of a light shade. So and
I don't know where I belong, somewhere in there.
So, you know, we're so many shades. You know, the sun hits you in January and then you go a shade darker, then the rainy season. So you say, what if you could build one that you could use? Now, someone like that, because they've thought, oh my gosh, that's such a good idea. You don't need to push a person like that because they have a bigger vision. So like I said, it comes down to the vision. What's that person's vision? Because your vision will drive you. Your vision makes you stay up at night.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think so that is really interesting, because I think most times we're not told to look for that vision and follow that vision. You just dropped into the world and just be like, oh, go figure yourself out.
Go to school.
And like in school, and actually I think we have this narrative, we have this notion or like this thought that when you go to school, everything is said and done. And actually school is supposed to give you like skills, equip you and get you ready for the real world, in that when you get into the real world, it's not going to be like a shock. But I think most people think going to school is just, that's it, I'll be done and I'll be all set. But I think to like in the real world, it's kind of like different. It looks very different from what school is. And so you talk about going on community. You like in the beginning you did tell us about like communication and all that. So how have you been able to integrate like communication and technology together and on your journey?
I talk about it every day. If you give me a microphone, any wake me up at 3 a.m., I'll be more than glad to speak about technology. But going back to what you were saying about school, if I can take you back, school is great because we learn some really, really good skills in there.
Yeah.
But school teaches us to regurgitate information. That's why we have exams. If this is the syllabus and your exams come, that's what you're supposed to put. Like when you talk about going into the real world, they don't teach you about things like humility. They don't teach you about things like, emotional intelligence at work, They don't teach you about networking. And yet in retrospect, those skills actually today, in today's world, they say those skills possibly proving to be more sought after. Critical thinking, problem solving, all those things. Because right now, we're looking for innovations. All the information that we're learning that was started maybe in 1950 or whatever, it hasn't changed, but the world has changed. So we are actually, I call it, even our characters need to change right now. Like we need, I'll call it, we need mental transplants, because now, like seriously, we don't even need a mental change. We need mental transplants, because I can give you an example. Like over the years, I've been going to office and talking to the same team, and those are the people I eat with. But right now, like the amount of Zoom calls I've been on with people from all over the world, like, what's your etiquette? Like, how do you think? Now you have to put into consideration other people's values, other people's cultures, things like that. So things we took for granted, where it's like, that's the first world there. I don't care. I'm in the third world. We have a distance. They're overseas. So now you have to learn who are you amidst a global community? Who are you? How are they going to remember you? Because now it's not just about you and your family and your 12 workmates. Now it's about you, and you're dealing with people internationally. You're not traveling anymore, so you're dealing with people internationally. Yeah. So all these things, we have to put them into consideration and find out, who are we? For example, if I look like at little 5-year-olds, and for example, there's been a lot of talk in just about every country about changing the education system. We all know the education system is struggling and all that. But sometimes I say, okay, but I can imagine the person who has to change it to what? Because can you imagine what kind of world is going to be existing 10 years from now? We can't even imagine. I was just telling my mom this morning, if anyone knew that 2020 was going to be like this, like people would not have even spent money on a shoe last year, because everyone would be hoarding their money. If we all had a clue, people would stash, people would sell their cars, right? But like the world turned upside down overnight. So I always say, like, if the world could change, like it's been what, like 10 months? If the world could change like this in 10 months, what about in 5 years?
Yeah, that's true.
So I support someone who still wants to go and get the education system from 1960, because those skills are vital. But I tell everyone, please, you have to match those skills with new skills. You have to take half and half. You can't just be like, I'm going to sit my exam, and then when I get out, then I'll try and suss it out and see what it's like.
I'll figure it out after that. I think, when you talk about like the education system and how it needs to be like improved or like updated, I think that's kind of like a challenge, or it's something that I don't know if it's us as human beings who haven't thought about it, or is it the whole system that it's broken or something. And I know with technology, it is something that is an afterthought. It's not something that we do on a regular basis or something like that. And I know from my experience, like my technology exposure was way later on. It was not like earlier on. So I think, what do you think could be done to make that awareness about technology in general?
You know, it depends on the country. Because people always feel like it's Africa that's like that's suffering. But you know, I was in the US last year about this time, and I actually came on a program of women in STEM, and we went to Utah, which was surprisingly very tech, by the way, if I must say. It was very tech. But however, when we spoke to one of the ladies who was heading like a hub, she said one of the hardest things we have is getting women into tech. So it's a global thing. It's a global thing. But when I look at my country, especially like having been on the task force and figuring out like how to get Uganda moving, we have to use so many mediums. You know, it's very interesting how an advert can stick in your mind. You know, these adverts come on during shows we're watching and they subconsciously stick, right? And that's why people pay so much. And I'm just like, we have to find so many avenues to make this awareness spread out for the whole country, because like we said, there's already a digital divide. But right now, if it was big last year, like right now, it's a little bigger. So if we don't start like having shows like this on radios and TVs and people making cartoons about them, like matter of fact, I was watching, where was I? I was in one of my sister's homes and some cartoon was playing in the background. And the concept was the mother got too tired, so she got a 3D printing machine to print food. So the kid was like, "Oh, mommy, what's that new thing?" And she was like, "Oh, this is a 3D." I mean, this cartoon like was for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. Like, "Oh no, this is a 3D printer. I'm too tired, so I'm just gonna be printing your food." And I was like, "Why can't I have that?"
What happened?
Like, why can't we have something like that? You know, like we're tired of cartoons with swords and you know someone trying to find a ghost. Let's fill our media, especially for a country where you know you have and not traditional talk shows, because unfortunately for us, you know, politics runs a lot of shows, so it goes beyond that. I'm like, look, all these soap operas and these music videos, surely they can put an hour where someone just talks about tech, but fun stuff, you know. Do you know you can do this with your phone? There are people who don't even know Google Map exists or anything like that. And I think someone has also brought up language, the aspect of language. Technology is primarily, it is English-based. For us who speak English, it's much easier. But I've also noticed that tech is also sequence, like repetitive sequence. Because I know I've given trainings where people are like, "Oh, you know, these things are so hard. You don't think about people in the village." And I'm just like, you know, we have the aspect of mobile money on our phones where money is transferred. So I'm just like, look, doesn't your grandma who's like 9 hours away know how to
use mobile money?
And then they're like, and I'm just like, so granny over there is very tech, you know? So like I said, it's that just changing the perspective of someone thinking to be tech, you're in Silicon Valley with 6 laptops around you, and it isn't that.
Yeah, that's true. And so you speak about technology. I know somebody might be asking what is involved in technology. And I know you did speak a little bit about it earlier on, but I think like, how would you explain technology to somebody? Like, what are the different elements of technology?
First of all, I've just defined technology as efficiency, number one. You know, I love to live an efficient life. I love efficiency. So I'm like, look, if my kettle right now can be connected and I want a cup of tea and I'm stuck on this Zoom call, if I can switch my kettle on with my other mobile phone, that works for me. That's efficient. You know, I was looking at the iRobot, the little robot that cleans your house. And I was like, that's efficient. So to me, technology, like I defined, is efficiency. But technology is also an innovative way to serve what you need efficiency in. Because not all technology is going to work for you. I can sit here and tell you I don't know everything because I woke up one day, Snapchat was there. I tried to learn how to use it till today. I don't know. I just use it.
It didn't work out for you.
I tried to watch a YouTube channel on it, and I was like, you know, if it does filters for me, that's okay. That's all I need to know. So you have to find what serves you. And that's why I say it's teaching someone technology today. If someone comes to me and they're like, Angie, I want to know everything you know. I've consumed knowledge for possibly 20 years from opening up machines. I mean, I did internship from, you know, opening up CPUs and changing hard disks that were broken and interchanging them and removing fans and all that. So my knowledge has grown over time to doing networking. So that's how I know, because I dabbled in just about everything, right? But even with that, I'm lagging behind with new technology. I mean, there's blockchain, there's things springing up. I was on a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he called me from Egypt, and he was mentioning this and this, and I told him, look, you need to send me links because I don't even know what you're talking about. It's information overload. So you cannot say, I want to know everything. First of all, you want to know, what do you want to do with it? Are you trying to, you have a office in Uganda, and you want to set up an office in Kenya, and you want the two offices to communicate. It's easy. There we're like, you know, you're going to have to look into networking, you know, wide area network and stuff like that. If it's not that, and you're like, you know, where our computers are really running out of storage and stuff, then I'll be like, you need to look into cloud computing. If you're like, you know, we're tired of buying software from vendors, then I'll tell you, you know, you need to look into software development. But right now, I had a chart that had all these things that have come up in 4IR, and, you know, it just raised like this, like IoT, like I've said, you know, IoT, machine learning, there's cryptocurrency, there's so much. But the thing is, it's all, most of it is lying still on code. Code is like the foundation. And right now, if someone actually taught me to code, I feel there's so many classes right now, people doing code, but the missing element in the whole ecosystem is that awareness, because we can build 50,000 coding schools, but until someone understands the urge, why it's important, what future job they're looking at, is it going to require code? Unless they look at it with that end goal, these classes are going to be empty.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I think the end goal kind of like drives you. It drives you to get somewhere. It's kind of like, it gives you a roadmap. Then you're going to sit down and just be like, I want to be at point A. Then how do I get to point A? So it's kind of like building all those little small steps to get to point A.
So if you want to be in security, then you know, okay, for me to be a security, maybe be an ethical hacker, yes, I need to learn a bit of hardware. I definitely need to understand network and find out where the glitches will be. So if someone asks me, Angie, I want to get into tech, how do I, the first question I'll ask them is, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? I'm not going to be like, well, there's hardware, there's network, there's software, there's cybersecurity. No, we won't get to the end of it. So I'll just simply ask, you want to be an entrepreneur? What kind of entrepreneur? Are you looking for, are you looking to build a fintech company? That's really how it should be broken down. Yeah.
Sounds good. And so what are some of, what has been like, what are some of the most common programs that you've been able to come across in the tech world? I know we have like too many programs out there, but what are some that you found to be really very impactful or easy to use?
In terms of software, like programs or like coding languages?
Yeah, coding languages.
Well, for me, in my day, I grew up on C#. I used C# back in the ancient days, but they've brought easier program languages like Python. Python's good. Python, you're almost writing paragraphs in English.
I know.
Yeah, so some languages.
It's very user friendly.
Yeah, like I'd tell anyone who, if you really want to get into like not stressing yourself and not having to deploy this and deploy that and SQL and all that, just Python is good. And it also depends on what you want to do. If you are you going to be building websites? Because if you're building websites, of course, what's it called?
You need the HTML, I think.
HTML, PHP, HTML, PHP, JavaScript. You know, those are things that you can look at. And again, and you know, there's so much information out there on like YouTube and the internet. Like I say, it comes down to what are you trying to do? Some languages are good for something. Some languages are not right for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Unfortunately, in the tech world, it's very easy. It's hard for someone to spoon feed you and be like, if you do this and this, and you have to really explore and find out what's best for you.
Yeah. I think many times our culture, it's kind of like more of spoon feeding, like what's the easiest way I can get this? Like it's easier for you to just be like, okay, what is this? And you get an answer rather than having to go do some research and try to find out what is this? What information is out there about this? And how can I get here? Or how can I get there? And yeah, I think that's quite a challenge. So as we come to almost an hour, I know with the series Success versus Greatness. So I would ask, what is your definition of success? And do you think success and greatness are the same? How would you define that?
I would not say they're the same.
How do you define both of them as like?
First of all, I will not say they're the same because when someone is termed as great, they've probably done something significant, something positively significant. For example, if we look at people like the late Diana, Mother Teresa, all those were known, like Nelson Mandela, they're known as great people, right?
Yeah.
But someone can be a successful drug dealer. I don't think that makes them, so they might have success. You know,
oh, goodness.
like a successful thief. So I think every one of us is striving for greatness. I don't believe in success. Someone could actually walk up to me and they're like, oh, Andrew, we've seen your Instagram, so successful. I'm like feeling like I'm at the bottom of the barrel because I feel I've not even scraped what I'd love to do for my community or my country. I mean, it's just the beginning. Just when I was beginning to start, COVID came. So success is relative. You could term yourself as, I'm successful because I own this car. And the person who you have a 2016, the person who has a 2019 is like, oh no, you are so far from success. But greatness is something that shines through because it's people around you who give you that title because you've affected them positively.
Yeah.
So that's my.
Oh, that's great. I mean, yeah, like success, to me, success is kind of like, hey, I achieved this goal. It's kind of like achieving something in minimal or small quantities. It's not like, whereas greatness encompasses like success. It's kind of like the impact that you have. Yeah. So that's a great definition that you have for both success and greatness. And for anybody who's on the call or watching us on Facebook Live, you can send in your questions and we'll get to them. So I think so from that I'll get to I'll get to a few questions here. And the first question Rose did ask, what advice do you have for women or girls who are in the field of technology experiencing imposter syndrome? And how can you be a strong role model to show you have overcome this?
Do you know, I wonder if imposter syndrome ever goes away. And I also, I should ask a few male friends of mine if it's only women who face it, because every time every time God lifts you to a higher level, whether you're a secretary and then you become a manager, I don't think whether you're male or female, you'll still have that fear, like, can I really do it? Yeah. So imposter syndrome, how to deal with it, you have to like build up on your self-esteem. When we talked about that belief in yourself, you're like, I can do it. I mean, I was telling a friend, I've been to conferences maybe where I come early and one of the older gentlemen, you know, in his suit will be like, oh, you know, can you get me a cup of tea or something? Because he doesn't recognize that I could be the speaker. But I don't take it personally. I actually take it as a compliment, because I'm like, well, then that's good, because then I must have more brain than I look like I have, if someone can misunderstand me. So it's really building on your self-esteem and believing in yourself. Like when you, like for me now, who like used to do conferences and you stand in front of ministers and stuff like that, you'd have to set yourself up in the bathroom. You're like, you know what? I know what I'm talking about. I know it may not look like I know it, but I know. I studied, I researched, and remember, please don't hike yourself up when you don't know anything. It's not going to work. If you're going to talk about cloud computing, please study, because you won't get the knowledge on stage. So it's belief in yourself and knowing that, you know what, I put effort, I know what I'm talking about, or I was chosen for this role because I deserve it. So no matter how many people tell me I can't do it, I know I can because I deserve it. But I don't think it ever stops, because with every level, new devils. So you have to keep going and pushing yourself. The higher you go, the more you educate yourself, the more you make yourself aware of what's going on. But it won't stop. But what I can tell someone, women and that who face that, just, you know, get up, spend 5 minutes, pray, and be like, you know what? I was born to do this.
Born for greatness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other question, I think you speaking at conferences and all that, it drives into the next question. So how do again, this is a question from Rose, how do these girls speak to be heard? Or like how do you kind of like command that that audience to be heard?
That's a good one. You know, I was watching a TB Jakes sermon, and he was saying that one time he was having lunch with his fellow pastors, and one of them said, guys, have you ever started a service and you're speaking and you're just looking at the crowd and people are just not there, people on their phones, and he's like, he says, and you just know this is not going well at all. It comes with a practice. I learned that my way of training or speaking, at times I add humor, but like I said, I didn't start like that. Like I'd stand and I'd hold the mic and my hands would shake. And when I saw 2 or 3 people rolling their eyes, I'd be so timid, I'd want to run off stage. But over the years, I learned a few tactics. In the first 30 seconds, if you can, crack a joke to pull the audience in. You can't just go there and be like, good afternoon, with your, I don't care if you just got an hour's sleep, you know? And drag yourself on stage. Like, you have to captivate them. And some of them have had to become really strict. We have told people, look, if you're going to use your mobile phone while I'm speaking, there's the door. Please get out, because clearly what I'm saying is not informative for you. So it depends on the crowd. I mean, remember, I've trained, like, I went to train a baby class. Like, these kids were like 4, 5, and 6. You can't take that same demeanor and talk to ministers, or vice versa. So you have to be very fluid, study your audience. High school kids are also a totally different. Like, these guys will chew gum and roll their eyes to the back of their head. So you have to also, you have to kind of also change your language. Like like what attracts them. If there's a certain song that's on the charts and everyone loves it, use lyrics from the song to explain something to them. So it's really a craft you have to learn. How do you speak to ministers at the same topic, like of 4IR, and also speak to a 5-year-old about 4IR? Same thing, but how do you break it down?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. And you did so for the conferences. How did you get into, like, how did you get the exposure to be invited to these conferences and speak to these conferences?
That's God. I'm not even going to take no credit. I'm not going to lie and be like, I just happen to be very eloquent. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I will say that in the past 2 or 3 years, I really dedicated myself to pushing myself out there. Let's just say almost bordering stalking. So like if I knew like Patricia and you guys are running something that I really want to be on, I would have to find someone in Facebook who's friends with her, who then I could, so actually let's call it networking. I had to build my network. I happen to be someone who, most people don't know this, but I'd be very shy. Like I stay at home, I don't go out much. So I'm not someone who goes around town and I'm high-fiving everybody. It's only at conferences where that happens, but I didn't know how to approach people. So that's one of the things that I had to do. And it was after listening to the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was in the corporate world working in telecom for about 6 years. And he said, look, if you don't have any sales skills, you're not going to manage, because every day you're selling yourself. Whether you're trying to get your baby into a kindergarten, you're selling yourself. Whether you're trying to buy a house or loan. So I quit my job and gave myself a sales job, got myself because I wanted to get over that being shy.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, every time they'd be like, go and see a client, I'd be short of like throwing up on myself. I used to work in like I said, in telecom, and my friend knew I was so shy. Like we'd be in the elevator together, and then someone would come in, and then she'd jump out so it would close, so I'd get stuck with a person because she knew, then I'd panic because I'd be like, do they say hello? Do I say hello? After they say hello, do I say something else, So I had that fear of talking to people. So I threw myself out there in sales so I could gradually learn to speak to people, to talk to strangers. And hey, I heard you're interested in this. Can I talk to you? So that's how I forced myself to talk to people. So that's why I'm saying that I started bordering stalking people, because if I wanted a gig, then I'd be like, oh, there's this conference, and I go, oh, who's in it? Can I come this time and listen? And then next time maybe I could speak. So it's really, people don't understand, but you really have to throw yourself out there. Opportunities will rarely come knocking at your door when you're sleeping and it's like, hey, I'm here. You really, really have to hunt them down.
Yeah, that's true. I think you've really brought up a good point of stepping into the water. For you to be able to swim, you have to step into the water. So that's kind of like the narrative. It's just like step into the water, whatever happens, you will learn. Yeah, you'll kind of like figure that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other question, I think this is from Patricia. How has coding in heels helped you fulfill your sense of impact for girls in Uganda to pursue STEM?
Well, I don't, how do I term it? I think I've had some impact, because, sometimes you're walking and you'll find someone in the supermarket and they're like, oh my gosh, you know what? I started my Facebook page. I now sell this and this and this. Remember, you gave me a training like 3 years ago. And you're like, oh my gosh, wow. So I've had a couple of those. Like I said, I still feel I could have done more. But strangely enough, like people will write and say, I attended a conference where you spoke and you changed my life. So for me, I can't say, oh, I give myself a 10 in terms of impact. I really don't know, because some of these things take a while. I mean, someone could have listened to you 3 years later, and 3 years before, and it's going to take them 4 years to actually fulfill what you told them to do. So I just do it and just, pray and say, look, if you want to reach out to me, feel free. As far as impact, I think that's the way I gauge it. Most people will probably be annoyed with me, because most people are like, so what's your business plan? What's your strategy? And I can't say have one, because I just woke up and did my passion. You know what I mean? I didn't sit down on my phone with 50,000. I didn't. So in terms of statistics, maybe people would be like, we want data. I know that. I'm just like, look, if someone comes and gives me a hug and they say, you know what, you spoke on that day and my life changed. I've had a lot of those.
Yeah. That's that's really interesting. I think to many it's kind of like trying to hold somebody else's hand. That's how I view it. Like if you've gone like places and you're there, like how do you help others? How do you hold somebody else's hand? Try to create a way for somebody else or something like that. And so I think technology is kind of like global. So like how do you think this is kind of like embedded in like global citizenship or the social impact and everything?
Say that again.
With technology being kind of like how do you term it to be like kind of like what is its impact on like the global citizenship and the social kind of like environment?
Well, for starters, now you have a chance to collaborate with so many people. So many people will have your dreams and your hopes, because before, some people would be like, oh, I needed someone to give me their expertise, how they're managing to do this in the US. I want to do the same thing, but they're all the way in the US. I can't afford a plane ticket to go and sit with them. And yet now with technology, a lot of collaboration is going on. I mean, in the tech space, like the women I have, my network is so huge. I mean, from Australia to the US to the UK, like LinkedIn, you wake up and you have all the people who are like, oh, we're trying to do this. How are you doing that? How are you achieving this? And you give them ideas and they say, we want to do it this way. Can it work over there? So for me, I think in terms of social impact, we have a chance to impact globally. For example, now I'm on Zoom, right? I don't know where I'm gonna be watched from. Someone might watch me from Kenya, so I'm not stuck to 10 people in a room in Kampala. So people are already impacted. So I think technology in terms of social impact and the whole global citizenship, anyone have access now. I mean, we have so many refugee camps in today's world. I mean, they don't have homes, they can't go to school, but if someone, for example, is able to put something like this on a projector, it's very beneficial.
Yeah, that's really good. And there's another question from Bill. I'm all for artificial intelligence, but I also feel like there's a need for regulation. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on this? For instance, should we get ready for robot nannies and all that? So like everything being done by robots. So what do you think about that?
There's a joke we say that the day these robots build cages, that will be the end of us.
Oh no.
They get their hands on cages, that will be the end of us. But he is so right. There's definitely the need for regulation, because like we said, even your phone at times malfunctions. Sometimes your phone freezes. Like my mom's was dialing people just out of the blue. So these are glitches. But also
Mhm.
remember that these are also programmed things, especially when we talk about artificial intelligence and robots and robot nannies and everything like that. These are all
Yeah.
programs. And I don't know if you heard of, oh, who was it? Was it Facebook that was building a bot? Let me not name names, but there was a company, because I can't recall, that built some bots, and they started developing their own language. And so the people who had actually coded the first language for them to communicate, now they couldn't understand what these robots were talking to each other about. So they had to shut it down because they don't know if these things were conniving or anything like that, especially with machine learning. Remember, machine learning, these robots basically teach themselves something to do based on information out there. So an example is, what if you gave a robot an algorithm: when baby cries, fix milk, cool it to this temperature, feed baby. And a hacker hacked into that robot and it's like, when baby cries, slam it against the wall.
Oh no.
Yeah. Because remember, this is all programmable, especially now we're looking at smart houses. Alexa is controlling everything. You know, Alexa, put on my shower. And you're in the shower and someone hacks it and, you know, puts boiling water, you know, increases the heat of the. So these are all things that could possibly go wrong. I mean, cars, you're having a driverless car and someone deactivates the brake. So programs the thing to, you know, just step on the accelerator. So there's a lot, while technology is moving like way ahead, there's also quite a lot of stuff that we have to be very, very careful about.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I think for anything, like, we need regulations around it. Because that's quite scary. As you're driving your car, like somebody else takes control of your car, or you're working on your computer and somebody takes control of your computer.
That's happening all the time now.
Yeah, and it's pretty scary. Yeah, I know, like, there are people who will use it for good, and then there are people who are gonna use it for bad. So yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. So another question from Peter. Thumbs up to Angie and the organizers. I love technology, but I just wonder whether Angie has any fears around technology, especially to the young generation who might not have a clear cut into how technology impacts not only their pockets, but their mental, social state, and many other things.
Absolutely. You know, right now, a lot of teenagers, the young people, you know, they wanna, I mean, I've got relatives who are trying to regulate things like Instagram, and the kids, they don't mind, because they're like, why? It's just pictures. But they don't know, you know, things like cyberbullying is real, very real.
Yeah.
You know? We have things like cyberbullying. We have, like you said, someone takes inappropriate pictures of you and runs them all over social media. So they're very excited, but there's no one teaching them that, like, this thing is fabulous in terms of connecting with people and putting up your art pieces, but it has some really dark sides to it. Like, this could ruin your life. This you could. I talk about, what's your digital trail? Like, even I had to go back in my Facebook and look at some things I posted 10 years ago, and I'm like, what in the wonderful world was I thinking, you know? So you have to understand that this digital trail cannot be erased. You can erase some pictures, but they will forever, ever be on the net.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very exciting to hear of looting going on somewhere, and you're like, woohoo, yeah, you know, and you're showing your friends, yeah, you see, I'm a patriot and I'm hard. And then 25 years later, you're trying to become a senator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're trying to run for presidency, and all they need to go is backdate your digital trail. And, you know, a lot of people are going to lose opportunities, and it doesn't stop at that, you know. A lot, like, work right now, people headhunt on LinkedIn as opposed to send us your 5,000 CVs. People are now headhunting, and the first thing they'll do, they'll follow your digital trail. Fine. I mean, and it's not even just the negative things, like, be truthful. Be truthful on your CV. Like you will say, oh, I'm so passionate about volunteering and blood donation. And when they check on your digital trail, there's no syringe on the page, like not even one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
young people really need to understand the concept. Every information that you're trying to put out there or consume, is it beneficial? Because the internet is about consumption as well as placing information, uploading information. I always tell people, if you're going to upload information, must you really? Like, I'm not being like a party pooper or anything like that, but I'm like, if you turn 70 and look back, will it bother you? Will it bother your family? Will it bother your kids and your grandkids? You know, will it cause them to raise an eyebrow like, grandma, what was wrong with you at that time?
What were you thinking?
So there needs to be a lot of that awareness that as much as these things are fun and we connect, they really need to be taught what the detrimental aspects of them are.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I think when you speak about employers and companies, organizations using like checking out your status, like who are you on LinkedIn, who are you, what do you do on Facebook, I think there's just an opportunity, there's a very big opportunity to lose a position just for what you did on the internet. And I think one thing that is really interesting, I think I use Facebook. I'm not that much of a social platform user. So, and like sometimes when the memories pop up, like on Facebook, and you're just like, oh, I said that 10 years ago. Would I say it again? Or maybe, and like those memories, it's kind of like, this information stays on forever. It's not going away anywhere. So,
But there's two sides to it as well. Because I also encourage people, like young people who are probably like in their last year of high school, where they're turning 18, because 18 really should be the year that you're allowed to use social media platforms, I think, to also start building your digital trail. So I don't tell you don't build it, because at the same time, look, if we're at a conference, you and I, of 5,000 people, and I meet you, and because, you know, I'm giving a talk, you're giving a talk, we have 5 minutes. I'm like, hey, I heard your speech. It was really fantastic. I'm thinking we can do some work together. You'll probably give me your links. And because even business cards, I think, are going out of, you know, I have 5 somewhere in my suitcase somewhere. So someone will usually ask, oh, do you have a social media handle? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, check my LinkedIn. So just from that, then I'll be like, oh, okay, she stays in this state. This is what she does. She's an engineer. She works for this company. And I'll be able to gather that information and make a very quick decision that, you know what, I can work with this person. But if you're like, well, I forgot my business cards, but maybe you can email me. Do you have a pen? Then I don't know anything about you. And I'm just thinking about, oh my gosh, the drama I have to go through to find out information about you. And especially if you're like, I'm an international speaker and I've been speaking at 10 conferences. If I can't prove that and see some kind of digital trail where you're like, here I was in Montreal and here I was in Germany and here, then I'll probably have some doubts. It will be much easier for me to give you a contract or to collaborate when I'm seeing the work you've done. And remember, for us, like in Uganda, it's very rare for someone leaving school to have work experience. And yet the first thing when you're seeing a job, they're saying, we need work experience. So that's why I tell young people, in your holidays, volunteer as much as you can and get references so that you're able to use these references on LinkedIn. So someone, you can just say like, yeah, I know I've just finished high school, but I've been working every holiday for the past 3 years. Here's some pictures of what I was doing. Here's some pictures when I was in the farm. Yeah. So it's a good thing and a bad thing based on how you use it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's true. Another question from Patricia. Does foreign funding for programs compromise like this industry, or why is it so hard to raise money locally? And have we tried talking like to cultural leaders about technology and all that, and how do you think that impact is in that aspect?
You know, I'll start by saying that the views of this individual are not necessarily the views of this show. When it comes to funding, I think naturally in Africa, we are not good risk takers. If someone's gonna invest their money in something, it's a risk. Yeah. Like a venture capitalist who is like risking his money, but he has the thing, he has faith it will work. Now, I'm gonna speak for me. I'm not even gonna speak on behalf of Africa or Uganda. I'm gonna speak for me as an African person who understands it my way. I think we're less risk takers. So we are, when I'm referring to Africa, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah.
When it's in your hands.
Yeah, you come to me and you're like, we're gonna build this innovation, it's gonna be great. And I'm like, look, when you've done your third trial and it can come and that machine can wash my plates and dry them and put it, then I'll give you money. Whereas internationally, someone comes with an idea. I mean, it's an absurd idea. You can't even figure out how it's gonna work. And someone's like, I'm gonna give you the money because I believe in you. So there's that. And then also, I think Africa doesn't have as much money because some of these countries, the money is not coming from the government. It's coming from people who are wealthy, individuals who are extremely wealthy. I mean, when you hear like China has how many billionaires, US has how many billionaires. So in Africa, we're not so fortunate. You might have like 3 or 4 people, and they might not even be venture capitalists. When you look at the government is also struggling with its own debt.
Yeah.
So you find that a lot of these great ideas are still being taken abroad because the people who believe in risk-taking are that side. Okay. And also, without making any excuses for us, sometimes we just don't get work done. I mean, I've heard many stories where some people get funding and the next thing they go and buy the iPhone 12 and, they buy a car. And when it's time to give accountability, they're like, well, it didn't work. So there's also that because the product is not brought in the promised state, so people lose money. And so even that now, for someone who's not a risk taker, that would be a last straw, and so they won't invest anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I think too, like that's quite a challenge. How do you think technology is something that has been shared with most communities in Uganda, or is it something that is just in the urban area, and it's not in the rural areas?
Technology right now, I think it's moving a little bit with the expansion of mobile phones and the internet expanding. But to be honest, it's still very much a central thing, and that's why I said it has to be a whole national awareness. Because we have areas where there's no electricity. Yeah. There's areas where maybe network is still not reaching. And not even that, just the price of data. Remember that, we even have like a tax on data bundles and social media tax, like that. Yeah. So there's quite a few things that are hindering the internet, the technology really moving forward. Yeah.
And so this is a random one. What would you tell to your young self? Like, what would you tell the young Angie? there anything different that you would tell her?
I wish I didn't stress so much about those subjects that I did, like agriculture. You know, I ended up like actually getting into depression. I think my final year of high school, because I was so scared that I'm going to fail, because I'd actually got a disease called brucella from drinking unpasteurized milk or something like that. So I was home for the longest time. I was on antibiotics, and it's something that's transmitted from animals. And because the talk was like, oh my gosh, if you don't go to Makerere University, your life is over. Like, you're dead. You're vanished off the face of the earth. So I went into depression, because I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't pass history, if I don't pass literature, if I like, I'm gonna be as good as dead. My parents are gonna hate me, you know. And so in that year, I wish I knew technology was coming, where YouTube was gonna be a lifesaver. Like, if I don't understand anything, I can, even in the office, I can, you know, get that information without having to pay thousands of dollars. I mean, right now we can sit in on classes in Harvard, and you know, it's just such a great time to be alive. So I think if I could have sat down myself and say, stop stressing, you stop taking those antidepressants, you're gonna do just fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's really good advice. What would you say to parents in regards to empowering their children with technology or STEM in general, and how can they do better? I know that's a tough one. It's kind of like a tough one. Like, if you're not part of, I think if you don't know about it, it's really tough. But just give us what your opinion is.
I'm laughing because a lot of my friends are homeschooling, and it is killing them. Like, it is, oh my gosh, they're like, this is like being in school. Like, children are asking them, what is Pythagoras? What is all this? And they're like, what are you talking about? But I think it also goes down to where the parent is. Again, I say probably parents within the central part of the country, where their kids are using Zoom, and you know, you need to call the teacher, and you need to set up the Zoom meeting. Now that parent is easily convinced that, you know what, actually my child needs technology. But for someone whose child has been, you know, they're in the village somewhere, they're not even hearing about Zoom classes or anything. Now that parent is probably going to be like, you know what, as we wait for school to resume, let's do farming. So it really depends on the parent. I think right now we don't, like the central parents, I really don't think, in terms of tech, I don't think we need to convince a lot of parents that your children need tech. Because even some parents were not using Skype, they were not using Zoom, they were not using, but they've been forced to learn.
And how do you think we can change the impact of mentality? How can we get more awareness in the girl child, or like for women, young children who want to get into technology? Like, how can we create that awareness, and how can we help those individuals?
Well, it depends on what age you're talking about. If it's right from the start, you know, we have this thing where if someone has twins and it's a boy and a girl, the girl's doll and the dollhouse, and the boy is going to get some aeroplane that uses some remote control, and, you know, so he's already becoming an engineer, like a few months old, and the girl's cooking. I mean, it's instinct. Like, okay, I'm just one of those girls. I never played with dolls, so I don't understand it. I'd rather play with cables and wires. But I think since technology is moving and they're making all these toys for girls as well that are very mechanical and stuff like that, I think that helps. But I've also seen there's some parents, I don't know if it's a generational thing. Kids today, let me tell you, I just went to see my sister and her 3-year-old was already on my phone. Like, my phone was locked, but she even knows how to take a photo when it's locked. She's like, no, she's swiping. I'm like, Adela, here are the photos. She's like, no, I want to see the video. She's like, I think 2 or 3, right? So these kids are already growing up with tech. That's not an issue. They're the ones teaching parents, no, you do this, no, you back up your phone like this, right?
Yeah.
So I think the age that has grown, actually, I think like from Generation X, these kids who have grown with pads and phones, they'll blend in much more easily. It's the parents who I feel like, don't touch that phone. Go and just read your books and don't touch this technology until you finish high school. Now, for me, that's where, because I've met people like that, where they're like, no, I refuse to buy my children laptops until they're 18. And I'm like, listen, as you wait for 18 years old, someone's child is programming at the age of 6. So I don't know when it's time to drop their CVs, and yours is like, I'm just learning how to learn Microsoft Office, and someone's like, these are the programs I've developed, we're gonna have a problem.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I think it comes down to having like a balance somewhere. Like there are instances whereby you can just say like, technology, this is just too much. And then like technology, oh yeah, this is needed here. And so I think the challenging thing is just trying to find that balance. When is it needed and when is it not needed? So yeah.
And watching and putting, and the good thing now, there's all these parental controls. Even if your child has a phone, you can limit the time they can spend on the phone. Even if it's 5 minutes, then it locks itself out. I mean, it's not like those old TVs where someone just has access to everything. There's a lot of parental control. So you can, I believe really the child can check maybe for their email or whatever, but also, for the parent to watch what communication is going on these phones, because they're very private. You want to go through their chats. You want to see what the friends are talking about. If, now kids are very smart. They even open their Instagram pages under pseudonyms. So we really, really need to have talks with these young people and show them the other side of this tech space.
Yeah. So I know like with technology, it comes a lot with, I think like with cyberbullying and all that. So what would you say about that? And how do you think people who are impacted by cyberbullying could deal with that? On how do you think like that could be like minimized, especially for the young people?
I don't think I can really answer, or what should I say? I don't think I can give a straightforward solution, because bullying has always been there. Bullying has always been there. It's just now gone onto the cyberspace.
Yeah.
When we talk about cyberbullying, you see, that's what I tell someone, like, you can't get bullied if you're not on the internet. Well, you can. Well, actually, no, I'm wrong. You can, because someone can take a picture of you and still do, something. I mean, you might
do damage.
Might be your neighbor and he takes a picture of you taking a shower without knowing, and before you know it, you're on the internet. But I think it really depends on the person, because, like you said, there are people who are strong. It comes, and they tell them it will pass. It will pass, just like anything. So just stay strong. Don't respond. Just, it will pass. But then there are people who are not strong enough, and that's the thing. And that's where we've seen kids who have committed suicide, you know what I mean? So, but I think it also comes with what you expose on the internet, because sometimes a bully may not have to go and find information from somewhere else. This could very well be information placed there. So that's why I go back to saying, must you write down everything? And if it is it something you're comfortable with, Are you trying to brag? Are you, because I've seen people being bullied, and then when I look at the character of the person, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand, you know?
That's why.
Yeah. Like, calm down. Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one last question before I ask Patricia to move on to the next. I think how do you think people should, like, how can people build how can they build their status, or how can they build themselves using technology?
Digitally, or like their lifestyle?
Digitally.
Like a digital trade?
Yeah, I think it's both ways, because you can brand yourself. So how do you brand yourself on the internet?
First of all, I can't say this is what I did, but right now, like where I am, it's probably advice I'd give. You have to ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? Because we can be known for so many things. Like, actually on my Facebook page, people, when they ask, what exactly do you do? Because I've got I used to do child party decorating, and then I like photography. So you can't confuse people and be like, today I'm a party planner, tomorrow I'm a tech guru. So you have to pick, like, what's that one thing that's gonna stand out? Who do you want the world to know, so that whenever they're calling people in that caliber, they call you? That's the first thing. So if you want to be a model, for example, no, let me give something unisex. If you want to be a chef, your page really should, I don't know if I should go into a practical example, but okay, let's say if you want to be a well-renowned chef, let's say 5 years from now, you should start showing the different meals you're making. You understand?
Yeah.
Like on a Sunday, you should be like, oh, today I made macaroni and cheese. Felt like, you know, putting on a few calories, take a really, really good picture of it, have people be like, oh my gosh, that looks delicious. Can I come over? The next thing, host a few people, ask them to comment on it. You know, that's how it is. So that by like a year's time, if someone goes through your page, they see, oh, they know how to cook, you know, lamb chops. So the other time they did macaroni, and oh, when we're looking at the reviews, people who've actually eaten at her place, they say this food is delicious. Maybe we should try her. That's how it's done. And then one thing that I've also seen that many people don't like to do, when you're starting to build a brand or a name or a service, you, in the beginning, you really are going to have to give some freebies for your brand to grow. Like, I think for the child decorating things, the first 5 parties must have been free. Like, I was just investing. Yeah. Why? Because then you actually have the setup. You can take some really good photos, and people are like, oh, Angie, this was lovely. Thank you. And then after that, then people will be like, oh, wait a minute, she did this, and she did this, and she did this, and let's try her. But if you're just like, so as of today, I'm a party planner, and then you come and you're like, can you do my kid's party? And I'm like, yeah, that will be 1 million. And you're like, can I see some work you've done? And I'm like, no, just trust me. I know what I'm doing. You have to show.
Yeah.
You have to have, and you have to have like an exhibition of what you have or what you can prove yourself to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Angie. It has been so great having you, and I'll let Patricia take over from now.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to be hosted. Thanks for the great work.
Yeah.
You're
hi,
welcome.
Angie. I will tell you one thing. When you talk about networking, this was one of the situations where your networking worked very well for you. Because when I was setting up Success versus Greatness, and people who have watched the first edition or have worked with us before know, I usually schedule this 3 to 6 months in advance.
Right.
I will be the person that is getting proposals from so many people being like, I want to do it. And I'm like, well, that's not how it works. You don't just say you want to do it. I need to be able to know who you are. Someone has to tell me what you do. So I will tell you, somebody that knows you personally recommended you to me. And I went crazy. I was like, oh yeah, we're doing it. We're doing
I'm
it.
so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, so and for me, you know, we have a few more minutes, and I just listening to your conversation. So Pauline and I, who is the other STEM person on this team,
Right.
we both had amazing STEM education. She went into engineering. I actually went into architecture,
Wow, okay.
which is
Nice.
like I'm a perfect blend of like STEM and like the humanities a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
When And the reason why I'm asking you this is because as women, it's very, very hard for us to be okay with taking our version of our path through STEM.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like we wait for this paved path, right? Like if Bill Gates went through this path and I want to be Bill Gates, I'm going to take Bill Gates' path. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to have Bill Gates' time or family or lifestyle or situation.
More money.
So when did you get that aha moment of, you know what? I have to trailblaze my own path to get to where I want to be. It's not going to change the end goal. It just means that I might not be climbing the hill the whole time. I might have to go through a few flat points, a few really steep points. So when did you get to that point?
Interestingly, I'll say I came. They say I came to myself. That's what they call it. I came to myself at a really, really low point in my life when I just sat and I was like, because I mentioned I'd been in the corporate world for probably about 8 years. And I was like, no, I just cannot be doing this for the rest of my life. Show up, sit on a system, do the same thing over and over again, no fulfillment. The sun comes up and you just want to scream of sadness because another day has started and you have to go spend 8 hours at the desk. So I quit my job, and then after I was like, yeah, I'm free. And then 3 days later, I'm like, I don't have any money. Oh my God, what did I just do? So that's when I started the kids party thing. And then I got to see that I had a very creative side to me, which right now people are almost also telling me, oh, you should go into interior design, which I didn't even know I had. So I, out of being like so sad and like, oh, what am I gonna do? And you're just on Pinterest, and you're like, wait a minute, that's easy to do. That's easy to replicate. Then I discovered I had that side. So I tampered in that a little bit. But then when a friend of mine called me and they were offered the Google digital skills and, working with it to train like young people around East Africa. I'd actually say my aha moment is when I got onto stage and we talk about these things like future jobs and digital skilling. And it seemed like the guys were getting it and the girls were like, huh? And I'm like, what do you mean, huh? Like, why is it only the guys who are responding? If I ask a question, it's them, and girls are, it was almost like me in a chemistry class, like, okay, what time is this ending? Because I don't know what this gentleman's talking about. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, no, but I'm like, don't lose hope. Tech is so much fun, And people are like, no, it's not. So I was like dying. I'm like, no, I need to find a way to tell people like, this thing is so cool. You can have so much fun with it. Like, you can go wild. Like, your imagination doesn't stop. Like, I always tell people like, I can be in the house and I'm like, oh, I hate ironing. When is someone gonna make something that you just push a button and the clothes are ironed? So I'm that type of person where I'm like, it can be improved. It can be improved, So I'm like, technology can do it. So I was like, I want girls to look at tech in that aspect where it's limitless expansion, if I can put it that way. So when I found out that I couldn't force girls to love tech as much as I did, then I think that's when I was like, look, I need to talk about this thing because it is so much fun. You can do so much with it. So I think that was it. So it came from being like at my lowest point and then like discovering some aspects and then really finding the love. They always say your passion is that thing that irritates you. Like you see it happening and you're like, no, I want to change it. That's your passion, and usually that's what you should go for.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you just said something so powerful where you said I couldn't force girls to love something the way I love it, right? And it's one of those moments where you just say, if I can't force you to do it, the other option is to inspire you to do it. And that route in life for me, I think has worked really well. For so long, it's been about like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Like at Engage, we're really passionate about, when immigrants come to the United States, that they choose a path that works for them, for the good of what they're going to be 10 years here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, I think I have both boys and girls on my team, and we both agree on this on a high level, that we're so passionate about the girls just because nothing is set up, at least in America, and I'll say it just bluntly, I'm yet to see a system that's set up to benefit girls.
Right.
Just a system that's set up with huddles. And if you don't hit the ground running, you've seen a huddle race. If you're not running, you're gonna knock that huddle down. So you better be able to fly over that thing, which means you can't walk and then start crawling. Like that's not an option. You have to go running. And Pauline will tell you, for years when this started, the conversation was always like, they're all about school. Like, why do I have to go to school? Like, why do I need to get this qualification? But here we are 5 years later in a COVID, basically our country COVID has taken over everything. And right now, if you are not in a field where you can work from home, you are not making an income.
Exactly.
You could have changed that 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Your choice is costing you right now. So when you say like, just talking about these things, it hits home for a lot of the people in this team, because it's very easy to give up because of 1-2 people who are not interested. Like you said, the girls are sitting and they're just like, what's going on here? But you can't lose hope on those people, because, as somebody who educates in STEM, you gotta meet people where they are. Yeah, everyone approaches STEM from different directions,
Yeah.
And the other thing we've been reflecting on in our team is, what do we want to be remembered for as Engage, Expand, Empower? And instead of making a strategy plan like everyone is always asking us to do, I think we're trying to make a legacy plan that we're really trailblazing what that is. So in a few words, tell me, what do you want to be remembered for as Angie Mirembe Semwogerere? And what do you want Coding in Heels to be remembered for?
I'll start with Coding in Heels. I think I would want, even today, not even just being remembered, I'd want Coding in Heels to just to be, I don't know how to describe it, but let me have a conversation where the name will be brought up, where someone's like, man, COVID really hit our business. We heard we have to understand all these technological things. I'm a working mother. I have 4 kids. I don't have time to go to school. I wish I could just go to a place where they could explain some of these things to me in a simple way without it being tuition costs and exams and everything. Just someone who's willing to give me information. And not going to discriminate whether I'm above 50 or whether I'm 12, whether I did, pre-high school, whether I know English. I just want someone who's just willing to take me as I am and educate me on this field. That's what I want. I'd want someone to be like, no, you don't need to worry and stress. Just go to this place. These guys will help you out no matter what state of life you're in. They will help you to understand not only what tech is, but to kind of guide you. Like we said, it goes back to what's your goal, and then guide you from that. What do you need to know? Because if someone wants to be a farmer, but they want to understand the aspects of what technological bits go in, then it's very easy to introduce them to these young innovators who have apps that weigh produce and connect you to other farmers and stuff. So that it is actually tangible help, rather than now we're going to start from the CPU, like that's going to take forever, you know? So it's getting information that's needed right now. Like
that's very relevant, very relatable. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, Angie, wow, what do I want to be remembered for? I think I just want to be remembered. Like I inspired people just to get out of the boat, really, because a lot of people have COVID made people really think about their lives, and people. I think a lot of people also realized that they were not happy with their lives. They were in the rat race, but because they were so busy, it didn't hit home. But I'm sure people sat and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I hate these curtains," you know. They hate like people in shops were like, this is the, some of them were making so much money because people just realized how much they hated how their homes looked. Like right now people are coming out and they're like, I need to redo my house, I don't know what I was thinking. So it really made people reflect, and I think people are stuck because they have to go back to normal life. But when they look at their normal life, they're like, oh my God, I cannot do that for another 20 years. So how do I change that? So I think I want to be a person to inspire and say, look, you can just start the way you started 20 years ago. You might feel like you're above the age or anything, but heck, Moses started at, I think, 80 or something. But you, as long as it is something you love and it's going to impact your community and you're going to find purpose in it, you'd rather do 3 years of purpose than the 50 of just working like a robot, according to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, purpose. Now, so the people of my team on this call must be laughing as soon as you say purpose, because all the interviews we've done, the one word in every interview has been purpose.
Yeah.
Every single one. It doesn't.
And that's why we're here.
I mean, you all of you couldn't be further apart from each other in like the way you lead your lives, but all of you have said, you know what, it's not worth it if it's not filled with purpose. It really isn't. And so one, I just want to say I appreciate you. Please keep trailblazing for girls in Uganda, because I'm telling you, like, I mean, I went to school in Uganda. I was blessed that I went to great schools, but the people that could have mentored me to be who I am today, those are not people that I met when I was going to school in Uganda. And to find people out there that are having the conversation of, guess what? You can do this. It is not beyond your reach. Is powerful for me, because, you know, I came from the generation, and Pauline will share, and I bet you'll share about this, the generation where the teacher would be like, you're going to be a failure. Like, you don't get a D1 in this.
You're not going to be anything.
You know, you're not going to be this and you're not going to be that. And I'm like, where is the what am I going to be? Like, why is there no positivity in this room? You know, I was the girl who, when, you know, I remember the day, my dad's not on here, but he would testify to this, the day that I got accepted to Namagunga, shout out to anyone who went to Namagunga. I thought it was the best day of my life. Legitimately thought it was the best day of my life. 3 months into Namagunga, I was like, you know what? It's a wrap. Okay? This is not what I thought it was. We need to roll this back. Like, And that said, I'm not saying the school was bad, because guess what? Namagunga gave me some of the best friends, contacts, social capital ever.
Yeah. Right.
But I cannot sit there and lie and say that that experience had anything to do with like the person I am today.
Right.
If anything, it was in spite of that I am who I am today. Like, I was like, oh, thank you, Lord. Like, we made it through that. So to just see somebody that can confidently stand by something and say, you know what, technology has been built up, because language and narrative is a very, very powerful thing, right? Yeah. Colonization has been one of the good and bad things about Uganda. We were told, like, that's for those guys. We get the bot stuff, okay?
Exactly.
You can't work at IBM. Wait for IBM to bring the program, then you work for them in Uganda. But I'm like, but why can't we make IBM? That's the part. So the fact that there's you who can like bridge that gap and say, hey, if you can make TikToks, that means you can make an app. If you can make reels, that means you can be a movie director. You know, like, there's so many things that people don't look at. I mean, the comedians right now are challenging so many people in Uganda because they make those short videos. But imagine how much like technology they're using to make these short videos. So, you know, we appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your time. this is a lifelong bond. Like Engage, Expand, Empower. You're in it. The network, you're built in.
I'm so honored to have been called like at such short notice. I mean, even me, when you were like, we want to do this, I wouldn't hesitate, because
Yeah.
I would reach out to as many people as possible and collaborate with as many people as possible.
Oh, 100%. And when Engage, Inspire, Empower makes its debut in Uganda, hopefully soon, because COVID is driving us insane. But we would love to do a live event and just sit in person and people get to meet the people on my team, but also meet amazing people like you, because once someone sees you in person, they realize you're very normal.
Yeah.
You're not the person on Instagram.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to let the people on Facebook go, but the people that are on the call, stick around a little bit. If you have any questions for Angie, you want to say, hey, you want her to know you were here, it would be a good time for you to have a conversation. But to everyone that's on Facebook, we appreciate you, the amazing support you give us, you give people like Angie, and you give other young girls that I hope will be impacted by this interview. We appreciate a whole lot. And I will be announcing the next speaker for this event on our Instagram page in about 15 or 20 minutes. So everyone on Facebook, it has been a pleasure. Happy Saturday. Americans, go back to sleep. I know it's 7 a.m. Ugandans, please make the most of your Saturday. It's an afternoon.